Hey everybody, welcome to the QuiverCast.
You go left, I go right. Man, this wave is out of sight. Going surfing, going surfing, going surfing.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the QuiverCast. Today, big wave surfer Grant Washburn's here. How are you, Grant?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Dude, stoked. Thank you for coming on. It's the middle of summer right now. Are you preparing for these big waves coming in a few months?
I'm trying. It's hard. It's actually the new struggle for me. I lived at Ocean Beach for like 30 years in San Francisco. Even in the summer, it gets a ton of energy. It's like a funnel and it pulls energy in. But now I live south of Mavericks and kind of near Santa Cruz, but not quite. There's not as much energy. So I'm trying to find ways to motivate myself because I know that eventually the big waves will come back and I'll be kicking myself if I'm out of shape.
Do you have to focus on staying in shape?
Well, I didn't used to. That's the thing. Living on Ocean Beach and just being like, it's such a pain in the butt to surf it that you're like, by default, you're fit. And that's what was exciting or cool about the place was it has tons of energy. So any given day you can go out there and get, kind of washed in almost, even in the summer. Now I'm older and some of these places have channels and I can go surf and I might come in and not even really be wet. That's not training for Mavericks. So,
right.
Big beach breaks that are kind of piling up on top of you and doing 50 duck dives every time you catch a wave. That's really useful in the winter.
Yeah.
So, but now I don't have that. So I'm wondering, I'm a little worried. I've been down here now 3 or 4 years and I've noticed the beginning of the season, I got to really lean in or I'm not ready.
You grew up on the East Coast as a kid.
I did. That's right. Yeah.
So how'd you start surfing?
I don't remember not being a surfer. So
really,
I was fortunate enough to be a little kid who went to the beach every summer. And what's common, particularly in the old days back in the East Coast, is real hot in the summer, like Philly and New York and Boston. It'd be super humid. And everybody has these sort of beach houses, pre-electricity. There was no way to really cool off inland. And people all went to the beach, which in the winter, the beach in New Jersey or Boston is brutal, like vicious, like Arctic. The water's in the 30s and the air is way below. But in the summer, the water can be up to 80 and the air can be 100 or 90. So it's like tropical. So it's a great place to be a little kid. And I went there every summer since I was a baby. And at some point before I can remember, I was a surfer.
Okay. Where did you actually grow up at? What town?
Well, I was born in Philly and my beach experiences were in New Jersey, where my mom was from, middle of Jersey, and we had a beach house, and we still have in Lavalette, which is kind of north of Tom's River, central Jersey coast. And then I grew up in Connecticut, so that's inland, and there's no waves anywhere near where I grew up. So I was basically in the summer, I was out there at the beach all summer, and then thinking of the surf the whole winter, which nobody really, back then you couldn't surf in the winter anyway, because there was no wetsuits. It was impossible to be in the water when it was that cold. I dreamed of it through my school years. My books are full of drawings of waves, and that's all I ever wanted to do since I could remember.
Wow. Were you the only surfer in town? In Connecticut?
Well, yeah, for sure in Connecticut. And, New Jersey too, like there wasn't, when I was young, in the 70s, like there weren't a lot of surfers and most of the surfers were kids. So like today, when you go back to New Jersey, you'll see people, families, old guys, old women, young girls, everybody surfing. Back then it was not like that. Like the adults didn't surf, for the most part. And it was sort of like the kind of, reclusive sort of fringe people that were the surfers, and they were kind of treated poorly. Like lifeguards didn't like us, and you were kind of an outcast.
Kind of
now
burnouts.
the mayor's a surfer. Yeah.
Was there a surf shop or anything in the Jersey area?
There was, and there has been, and I think part of that, the beach scene was pretty big in the summers there. It's very seasonal, but it's a big business, and from all the way up the coast, the whole East Coast is bubbling in the summer. And 4th of July week from Cape Cod all the way to wherever, Carolinas, it's a huge deal. And there's surf shops, and Greg Knoll, who way back when is an old friend of mine who passed away, made boards, and there were Greg Knoll boards up and down the East Coast. Like they had figured out this is a place to sell longboards.
Wow.
And, there was a kind of a semi-thriving little scene up and down early on, and there's been surf shops there since I was born.
Okay. In the summer, it's pretty flat too, though, right?
They get waves, yeah, and that's one of the other reasons it's a great place to be a little kid, because the waves are
Yeah, you're
small
not going to get
and you
hammered.
can learn how to do it and not be like in danger for the most part. And then occasionally there'll be a storm that sends actual, head high or bigger waves, and those stand out. I knew that the waves sometimes were bigger, when I was really little, and always wanting them to be bigger, and you're kind of starved because they don't get big very often. So it's kind of a weird place for to grow up, because I wonder if here you mostly see waves that are too big a lot of the time if you're a little kid.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have that.
Right.
When I was 8, 9, 10 years old, I always wanted the biggest days because there were hardly any waves. So it just kind of bred it into you, like a kid who never had a big Thanksgiving dinner. You dream of turkey.
That's funny. Were you a big kid too? 'Cause I know you're a big guy now.
I was skinny, especially when I was younger. I was really skinny and tall.
Okay.
But it doesn't translate well. What happened to me as a surfer was I, hit puberty and got to be a pretty big guy.
Yeah.
And I'm like 6'5" plus, and it was still like only 200 or 205 or something. But the surfboards were not made for bigger people, and I was, of course, not getting any custom anything. But when you're a little kid, it works. Like you take the old single fin that some regular person had, and it's a really fun board for a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old.
Right.
But once you're 200 pounds, most of them don't work on the waves that I had.
Yeah.
And so what ended up working for me was a really old longboard with a barn door, like square fin, so old that there was no foils.
Yeah.
But that thing was really fun in bad waves. It was just like I catch waves, I could cruise, and, I had a good time.
Okay.
So I always loved it, but I was never, never did real tricks or anything. And I never had a normal surfboard that worked for me until I was out here.
Did you have any idols you were looking up to on the East Coast?
No, but interestingly, again, I don't know why, I loved big waves. I would get Surfer magazine and cut out the biggest wave and put it on the wall. And I didn't know who the people were, and I don't know what that says about. Like, I wasn't like attracted to a surfer so much as the waves. Like, that's what I was excited about. And the biggest waves always excited me the most. And even in hindsight, I'd go ahead and meet Brock Little or Ken Bradshaw, many years later.
Right.
And I'd think, I had a picture of you on my wall, but I never thought, I want to surf with that guy. I want to surf that spot.
Right. Okay.
Like, I didn't care who was on it. I was like, it's about the wave.
Oh, rad. Speaking of Ken Bradshaw, he's not from your area, but he has a similar background, it seems like, from what I know.
Yeah, he was from Texas.
Yeah, Texas.
I knew that, like, I knew a story, like, he was a football guy and quit, and like Greg Knoll too, like they were athletes that didn't want to play the normal way, or found another outlet for it, and I never thought that way. I didn't ever think I could do what I ended up doing. I just was really excited about it. So when I came to California, I just wanted to surf. I didn't think, I'm gonna go show those guys how to surf.
Right.
I thought I'd be lucky to catch a shoulder anywhere.
Okay.
And there was no place of Mavericks wasn't a thing yet. No one had heard of it. So I was trying to go to Hawaii, and then when I got to Hawaii, I just wanted to go near big waves. I didn't have any aspirations of like being a surfer.
So is that your first big wave experience, was in Hawaii?
I went to Hawaii. I went to Mexico once. First time I caught big waves was in Rhode Island. When I was in college, there was a pretty big hurricane, and they were like, I'm going to say triple overhead waves, which, 6 foot, whatever they call it now. But, to me, they were like about 20-foot faces. And I was like stunned by that. I was so captivated by it, and I caught a couple pretty good ones, and someone asked me like, who are you?
Oh, really?
I was like, what? Yeah, because the guy was taking pictures over there, and he was like, well, the other guy that was catching big ones, he goes to Mexico all the time, and where are you from? And I'm like, what? So I didn't know, but I did know that my friends and I, when we would look for waves, I would always want to surf the kind of rougher, bigger spot, even though none of them were big waves. Those guys would always want to surf the most perfect waves. And I would constantly have these things. We'd be driving around wherever we were looking for spots. And I would never want to surf where everybody else wanted to surf. Like, and that happened out here too. They would be like, we're going to go wherever. And I was like, I can't believe we're going to Santa Cruz where there's all these people. And we drove by all these big empty waves that no one wants to surf.
Wow.
You're like, what are you guys? Why would you go surf with a whole bunch of people? Or like under the bridge? It's like the waves are like 40 feet and you guys are fighting over like head high waves on the Golden Gate. Like, what is going on? Because I could have drive up and down the whole of the East Coast for my whole life and never see waves like we're all driving away from.
Yeah.
But I've seen waves like the ones underneath the bridge, and I don't care about those. Like, what are we doing? So it's just so strange to me that most people don't want to do what we do. But I understand that that's the case. Like, I just love big energy, and the perfect waves don't really too much for me. Like, I don't mind them, but I'm certainly not going on a trip to get perfect little waves.
So you're just wired differently.
No, I know. And I don't know, that's just how it's always been. And I get so stoked, but I can have fun. I had fun this summer. I was just in Jersey and we were pushing my niece in. She's 2.5. Like, I'll totally remember that session more than my own surfing this year. And on the 100-foot day, I'm like, I'm not dying to catch a 100-foot wave anymore, but I really like to go out there and be around them. But when the big, huge ones come, now I'm pretty happy to step aside, but the attraction's still there, and I try to find the medium one. They say they seem bigger. So old Peter Cole told me a long time ago, as an old big wave guy that he also passed away. He's like, yeah, the best thing about getting old is the waves seem big a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you're 25, you wait all year for one big scary day. When you're 60 or something, it's big a lot.
So the first time you really paddle out, let's say like maybe a spot you never surfed before and it's pretty big, what's going on in your head?
Those first experiences, I just was always going into the bigger spot. Like, so in Rhode Island, there was like a wave in the outside peak. In Mexico, same thing, kind of like a beach break or Ocean Beach. There'd be waves that are kind of shoulders, and there's kind of a safer place to catch them. And then there's the outer peak where you go past and have to wait around. You eventually get smoked or whatever. But whenever we surfed anywhere, I would always be attracted to that part of wherever we were surfing. And Ocean Beach was where I really cut my teeth. And what would happen there is it kind of focuses in the middle of the beach, and the bigger it gets, that happens even more. So you can kind of move by block, and it turns up the volume of a given swell for the most part. So this center of Ocean Beach will be magnifying almost double the energy of the sides of the beach. So you just try to get to the middle and then sit out there and like be way out. We'd be way the heck out there. And you just have you're waiting. These big sets come and you don't know where to be. And it's more like the outer reefs, than like Mavericks. I really love that. And that was just amazing to me that there was this big empty field and there's nobody out. And they're all going to, wherever, someplace that has a channel and a normal lineup.
Yeah.
But I just be out in this field of 30-foot peaks that are everywhere. That's what I dreamed of always. And then Mavericks, man, holy cow, what a different thing. So anyways, I loved it. I always, when I did get run over and whenever I had those bad experiences, they, for the most part, left me like more stoked, and I definitely got out of the water a couple times going, whoa, I'm lucky I got away with that. But it didn't ever make me not want to go back.
No fear of like dying or anything ever?
No, definitely fear of dying.
Oh,
but
really?
Not in a way that like I didn't expect to die. I know
you were
that
willing.
You can die.
If
Yeah, well, no, I wasn't. And that's like Fu said, ultimate thrill, ultimate price. Like I never felt that.
Okay.
Like I'm like, no way, I want to die. I want to live. But of course, if you totally screw up, you could die.
Right.
It's like, you drive on the highway, you think you can't die? Like you're dumb.
That's true.
Of course you're going to die. So, if you wreck in a bad way, there's nothing you can do about it. No matter how much training you have, if you break your neck and get a 5-wave hold down, you're in trouble.
You're in deep trouble.
It doesn't matter who's looking for you or who wants to help you. But if you're smart and you play within your, whatever capabilities and comfort zone, you have a really, really good chance of not only not getting killed, but not getting hurt and having a really fun session, even on huge, terrifying days. Okay. Yeah, so mostly I come in without a scratch and be like, this is awesome. You go mountain biking, you're going to get hurt more.
All fact. Still, most people can't wrap their head around what you're saying, but it makes sense.
Well, and it's water, so it's holding your breath. And we learned so much since. I didn't understand it at the time, but one of the things that we all share, the big wave people, is that you just are calm. The storm hits, and if you panic, you lose up. Your oxygen goes away really quickly, and we didn't. That it's self-explanatory. This whole go into Zen, calm your heart rate or whatever. But knowing the physiology now, like that's literally the reason people panic is they lose their air because they're panicking it away. And now they can't hold their breath because they don't have any oxygen left. Okay. We were just chilling. And if you jump off a high dive and you land okay, you're fine. With a motorcycle or snowboard or pretty much any other sport, you're going to get hurt if you fall. In surfing, for the most part, you don't get hurt, especially in big waves. You're falling deep water. If you're at Chopu and it's shallow, that's different. That's the kind of waves that I don't surf. Like if it requires me to be such a good surfer that I can't fall, then I don't get to play there. It doesn't matter how small or whatever, because I can't not fall, but I can hold my breath.
Okay. What about the timing of holding your breath? Maybe your board hits you in your stomach or something. You get like,
yeah, no, that can get you. Interestingly, though, when you get bonked, a lot of times it's easier to hold your breath. Like Like you'll forget that you're worried about, because it is mental. So like say you bang your shin when you get held down, your brain's all thinking about, I wonder if my shin cut, am I gonna, and you don't think about your oxygen at all. It's when you start thinking, am I running out of air? Do I need a breath? Then you start going into that loop. I've had a bunch of times where I've got like, whatever hitting the ribs, and that part of it isn't a thing because you're so chill. Your focus is the other. Everyone does practice now, but in the early days, I knew, or we were afraid of drowning, and we would practice holding our breath, and I could do 3 or 4 minutes.
Wow.
Even before it was fashionable. Yeah. So it was maybe like a few people, it's part of what they do. And I've also learned people that, like sprinters that train, they don't train to hold their breath at all because they're respirating like freely when they run.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys, like, unless they do some other thing, they can't hold their breath at all. Like a really, really fit Olympian sprinter, if you put them underwater, they like panic almost immediately because they never don't breathe.
Right.
So their whole physiology doesn't know how to do that. Whereas I was always swimming under the water. I always loved that. And this is a thing that when I was a kid, my parents used to throw change in the pool because I was bugging everybody. It was like on vacation
to
at the
entertain
Holiday
you.
Inn or whatever. Like throw a bag of pennies into the deep end and be gone for a while. Yeah, and I loved it. I loved to go down under the ladder and find pennies. And that was kind of a cool thing to me, which is a different mindset. Like that the deep end is not a scary place. That's my place.
Wow.
Like I'm going to go down and sit under the ladder and like I'll be able to hang out down there. And the other kids are afraid to swim in the deep end because the pool's darker. And be like, what are you talking about? That's the magic spot. So, and it is something that when I held under at Mavericks, I don't think of it like, oh, I'm terrified, I need to get up. It's like, oh, this is my quiet place where I can chill. Like that's how you have to think of it.
Do you think about what's coming behind that one that's holding you down ever?
Yeah. And that's where, honestly, having that mindset, right? So you're going to be, however you got in there, you fell or you got caught inside or whatever, but you're down and you're getting rolled and you don't know if you're going to have enough time to come up. Like the first thing you're waiting for whether or not you're even going to have a say in it. Because sometimes it just swirls so much that there's nothing to do but just let it happen, because until it will allow you to have some agency. And I just wait around, and that's a good thing about a wetsuit. Even before the flotation, you would just start floating. Right. You can feel your board pull if you still have your board, and then you feel your wetsuit sort of trying to go up. And it's nice to listen to that, but then you have to think, do I want to spend energy swimming up, and or should I just wait, depending on how long you just got held down? Because if another one's coming, you really don't want to be just coming to the surface when it hits. So also thinking, did I get dragged in or did I just get held down? Yeah. Sometimes we fall and we come up right where we fell. Like a guy's face will hit the water and then he'll get held down for 30 seconds. When he comes up, he's in the same spot. So if that happens to you, then you come up, you're right in the pit. If you can feel yourself, in the waterfalls or whatever, that you're moving. If it stays violent and tumbly for a really long time, you're probably going in. You know what I mean? You're getting dragged towards the shore. Yeah. Whereas if it feels like there's a lot of pressure and not a lot of turbulence, then you probably didn't go anywhere. You're probably just deep in the pit. Wow. And then that's when you may want to just wait, because whatever. So that's when it's scary, but it's helpful to just be able to think that way. And what I've always done and had this ability for whatever reason, even before drones, I could kind of see my point of view from up there, looking down on the impact zone. So I'm like, oh shit, here I am, and I can think what's behind, and there's another set or their wave coming, and then where am I on the lineup? If you were a seagull looking down on the lineup, like am I dragging towards the rocks? Am I dragging towards the channel? And I kind of guessing where I'm going to be. And when I come up, I'm not trying to really do anything except for see if I'm where I think I am, in reference to the rocks and the impact zone. So I come up and first off, you don't know which way you're facing. So sometimes you're like, oh my God, that's a huge one. And they're like, oh, those are the hills. Oh shit, you got to turn around because the waves are the other way. When you first come up, it's hard to focus your eyes because you've been in the dark, and then you got to see where you are. And then before you do anything, it's really important to know where you are and what's going to happen. And so a lot of times there's nothing to do but just get some air and close your eyes and go down again. And then if you do that right, you don't use any energy, and it's actually pretty chill. So I've taken a huge set on the head, like 8 or 10 waves. It takes 3 minutes, and at the end of it, you're like, huh, and if you fought, you look like you're in a, whatever, dragged through the train pit, and like you're just wrecked, or you just relaxed and swam down 5 times and did a bunch of somersaults, but you didn't expend any energy, and you get pushed into the channel, and now you're fine. So
That makes sense how you're saying it.
it's pretty weird. Got to go with the flow, but that's what we all learned early was if you fight it, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
And that's part of the lesson is like when and where to fight. Like it's like paddling out on a bigger day. Like if you scratch for the horizon on that set that you're going to barely make it over, you want to make it over.
Yeah.
You don't want your heart rate up and then not make it. So if you're not making it, don't go. Wait until it's over and then go.
Right. Okay. That makes sense too. So you grow up, you say you go to college on the East Coast. At what point do you decide to move to the West Coast?
Straight up, I was coming. I had a plan to go surfing and found a kindred spirit that was ready to go traveling with me.
Okay.
And then I got to San Fran just by pure dumb luck. Ended up at a concert where someone was like, hey, this is at Yale. And they go, hey, you could go to California. I didn't go to Yale. My friend did.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, oh, sure, I'll come. And I just showed up here and had no idea at all how it had to be better than what I knew.
Right.
But this is the 1990, like pre-internet, anything. There was no pictures really of San Francisco as a surf spot. I knew Santa Cruz, but
yeah.
Anyway, I just got here, got lucky, and Mavericks came out like the next year, and I lived on Ocean Beach for a season where I got to surf the beach the whole time and got used to bigger waves. And then Mavericks was like, came out of the mist, and I was right before I was planning to go to Hawaii, and by the time my friend wanted to go, I'm like, I'm staying.
Okay.
I don't want to travel anymore. We found it. I thought we were going to Hawaii to find big waves, but they're bigger here.
Yeah, and consistent. Pretty consistent.
Yeah, well, who knew, man? It was just a stuff. I mean, that first couple of days, I'm like, I've never even seen a picture like this ever of any picture. Like I said, I always cut the biggest waves out of all the magazines, and I'd never seen a picture of a wave like this.
Yeah.
Like there aren't any like this. Like it was crazy. Like,
what was the lineup like? Who were the characters?
I can remember specifically Jeff and Sean Rhodes and Richard Schmidt.
Yeah.
Who had just come from the Eddie, and it was his first session. And, those guys were the best guys in the world, or, at least Richard was one of the best guys in the world.
Sure.
And Jeff and Sean were the heaviest guys from around here. And then there was, Peter Mel was there. He was really young.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know who anybody was. Like Richard Schmidt, we all knew who he was.
Right. Legend.
Yeah, but holy cow, like so committed and capable, right, to do this. And it was like, and he said, holy cow, that was one thing is we weren't really sure. The rumors were this and that, and people said this, and and I didn't really believe it either, because what happened to me, I surfed at Ocean Beach, I lived at Ocean Beach. Whenever we went anywhere else, it was smaller than it was in front of my house. So I was like, oh, you guys just don't want to paddle out. That's why they kept saying, oh, we're going to go here, we're going to go there. And then they were like, oh, Mavericks going to come see this Mavericks. And it was Doc Reneker, who was my neighbor. And I felt like, oh, he just is like, he couldn't make it out here.
Okay.
So that's why he's going down there. And I just didn't want it. Like, I just didn't believe him. Most people didn't believe anybody about what it was, which is it does magnify even more. Ocean Beach was known to magnify most of these swells. It's like double at Mavericks.
Wow.
Double. Or like quadruple whatever any place else is, which is what we see in the pictures now. Like on a good Mavericks day, you'll find there's probably no place anywhere near here that's even half that size. And that's what was going on, but no one knew it. And so I remember those guys going for it. I remember just sitting on the shoulder and like being dumbfounded. And I caught a couple like side ones, but I was just all about making a movie, to get back into what I was doing. I was working in film. I worked for NFL Films, and I worked at an editing place so I could surf more during the day. Mm-hmm. And I was going to make a movie about big waves, and I was shooting at Ocean Beach a lot. And then the first session at Mavericks, I like throw everything away, start over. I was like, oh my God, like I just had no clue. Like this is like so much bigger. And just for the record, the other thing that happens when you see photos, it doesn't ever do it justice. So when you see a picture that looks like a big wave, it's much bigger than that in person. Mm-hmm. So when you see a picture of your own wave, it usually is disappointing.
Right.
Like, oh, I got a good shot of your good one. You're like, oh, don't show me. You just ruined my session, by me seeing what it looked like. I thought it looked like a good one, But anyway, the pictures don't look like, they don't do it justice.
Right.
So when you get really face to face with these things, it's just surreal, like off the charts. Like it was, like I say, twice as big as any photo that I had ever thought of. And that's partly because I didn't understand what was going on. But truly, these waves were so big, everyone was blown away. So
you show up, and the first time you surf it, what's your thoughts in your head?
I do remember that I didn't think I was going to be trying to catch those. Mm-hmm. Like there was a huge difference between the shoulder and the big ones, mm-hmm. So what Rich spun around on a giant one, and it ended up being the board tag for O'Neill for a while. He had to dive off on it.
Oh yeah.
It was so huge. Like it looked like a 50-foot high, 50-foot wide barrel, and he was right in it. And I saw it perfectly, and I was like, "Oh my god!" So I never thought, "Oh, I want to do that." I was just like, "I want to be here and watch that."
Yeah.
You know? So I just want to watch what those guys do. And I had like basically threw away all my, not threw away, but I stopped doing whatever I was doing and started thinking I got to be here for every time this place breaks, which is what I did starting then. And truly, my pivot was that I filmed a couple years there, the first few years, all the sessions, and then I watched it all summer, over and over and over, editing it and going through and seeing all that stuff. Sure, maybe the third winter when they came back, I was like, my brain had learned how to do it from watching the edits, you know. And someone said to me, "Hey, what have you been doing? Holy shit! Like you're catching tons of waves." And that was all I had been doing was watching it, you know, making it. I was surfing Ocean Beach all the time, but I wasn't a really great surfer. I was like really, really motivated and seeing it. And I specifically remember one thinking, "Oh, that guy's he doesn't really want that wave. He's paddling for this wave." But, you know, and then I realized it was me. My friend had filmed me and I don't look like I want it. And in my head, I thought I'm paddling for it like I wanted this wave. But now watching myself paddle for the wave, it looked like I didn't want it. Like if you want it, get it.
Yeah.
Like show that you want it. And you could see who wants one when you watch someone paddle for a wave.
Right.
You know, they turn around early and they dig, and that's how you get them. And if you're not doing that, you're not catching. Really, you're not doing it. So I saw that happen, and then it's one of the reasons everybody films their golf swing and their football team. You know, because people don't really remember what they think they did correctly. And then when you watch yourself do it, you learn a lot. And so I learned a ton before everybody else was able to watch all the footage. I was able to watch all the footage of all of us, you know, all the bad ones and all the wipeouts and everything else, not just whatever somebody made a VHS tape of.
Yeah.
And that really teaches you a lot. So there's quite a lot that came into it from that. And then, you know, learning to read the ocean, because I get to see it so many more times, not just having been out there every session, but also rewatching every session.
Yeah.
with 3 angles.
Did the water move differently than the beach break, like Ocean Beach?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of stuff. And even now I'm learning so much. It's kind of weird, but you feel like you're running out of, you know, I'm not young enough to do what I used to do, but I'm learning. I'm way better at it. And I talked to Peter Mell about it too. We're so much, you know, more familiar and aware of what's going on than we used to be. Like we just didn't know anything. And sometimes that can work in your favor. Like you're clueless and you're sitting there on spot and you get a perfect wave because it came to you, but you didn't know that you're in a bad spot.
Yeah.
Now we all see the pattern. We tell the directions, the intervals, the currents switching the way it used to, you know, baffle you. You'd be like, "Oh, that was weird." Now you're like, "Oh, I knew that was likely to happen," or, you know, so we've seen it in a way that we didn't used to. And every session you learn more.
In the 90s, when Mavericks was fresh and new, a handful of you guys were out there. Were you guys pushing each other?
Yeah. You know, I mean, the waves push you no matter what.
There you got that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was, and I remember for sure there was, you know, the guys from Santa Cruz were a huge injection of energy to the area because, and this was specifically me with the camera, right?
Yeah.
I'm waiting for a good day. At that time, sometimes I would rent a camera, a nicer camera, so I had a one on the land and another one I'd get in the water with, or to get on a boat or something. And I try to get a couple angles, and I'd get everybody there, and the sets would come and everyone would run away. No one would get near it. I'm like, someone go near one. I'm like, shit. Okay. And that's probably the other reason I went. I'm like, all right, here, you hold the camera. I'll go get one.
Yeah.
So it's like, at least someone has to show. You can't tell these waves are big if no one goes near it. And when the guys from Santa Cruz would come, they would step it up. You know, they already had built into this, you know, frothing sort of, you know, pit of the West Siders versus whatever. Those guys were like driving themselves. And when they came, they drove the whole thing. And it was, if you're a guy with a camera, you're like, yay.
Yeah.
Finally, someone's going to go over there, you know, and if you're in the water, you're like, oh, here comes a bunch of guys that are really chomping at the bit, you know, but Mavericks was like a great proving ground that required that kind of a, you know, a crew. Like we were mostly a lot of times just a bunch of quiet guys sitting way off on the side, running away when a set came. And to like really stay home and want to go for it. Like there was very few people that would be willing or capable of doing it back then or now really.
Okay.
But, you know, it was a lot of times it was a bunch of people that really didn't really want one anyway, you know.
Okay.
So they're like, oh wow, okay, I caught a shoulder, I'm good,
Right?
Like, you know, and if you're trying to take a picture, you need someone to go get a big one. Like I want to show a big one, I don't want to show a shoulder. And like, you know, it's really frustrating as a camera person, but a lot of times the waves look terrible compared to what they are.
Okay.
Like the surfers in the foreground he's coming toward the camera. If you're shooting from the channel, the big wave is way in the background. New Jersey can look huge if the foreground, the little wide angle lens is in the foreground. You get GoPro, a little Jersey wave, it looks better than Mavericks. You'd be like, oh, what happened? It's the biggest wave of the day, and it just looks like nothing.
How were you guys telling that it was swell and it was the right direction and wind and all that kind of stuff? Were you just checking it and that's how you found out, or were you?
I lived on Ocean Beach.
Yep.
Yeah, so we all had to check all the time, and I did a funny thing with Pete. Sometime in the late 90s, there was pager.
Yes.
We had surf page. As a camera guy or a grip, worked in film, and that's how you got your job. So we'd be at lunch, and they'd be like, everyone would line up for the payphone, and you'd call back the pager. Whoever returned the page first got to work on the music video or whatever.
Right.
So I had a pager going on before the surf page became a thing. But before cell phones and before the internet, to get information and like a buoy report, we listened to the radio, the weather radio, or there was a surf thing that we would do. But someone had to climb the dune and look at it. And then they would go, oh, it looks 3 to 4 kind of west, whatever.
Okay.
And we were laughing about the surf page guy would like make up a different story because it was good and he didn't want everybody coming.
And there's that.
Vice versa. You'd tell everybody that. Yeah. So anyway, it was weird. I lived in a place where I could see the waves, and I could end up, and like everyone, you have indicators. How did you judge if Mavericks was going to break? If you were in Santa Cruz, you looked at Middle Peak, how was it behaving compared to this? And at Ocean Beach, I'd be looking for the outer bars, and if it's feathering on these sandbars way out there, that's probably Mavericks is going to break. But we really didn't know. There was a lot of mystery to it. And looking back at it, the angles are really important. If the swell is really north, it kind of slips through the Mavericks Reef and it doesn't hit as well. West swells will be piling up even when they're not that big, and you'll be like, wow, this is like much bigger than we expected.
Yeah, heavier.
So some days we would be surprised to go out there and it would be really going off, and other days you're like, oh, it's going to be pretty big, and it's kind of in between. And now we can understand why. But back then, and I read my journals, it's funny, took a lot of journals, and it's like, I could totally understand why I didn't understand. You know what I mean? Like I was totally oblivious to the interval thing, or the 5 degrees direction change is huge difference. I barely even looked at the direction. I was like, it's 20 feet, who cares? Like, oh, actually you really should have paid attention. So yeah, but we didn't know. Yeah,
because there was no buoy. You couldn't get a up-to-date buoy report, right?
You could, but you had to listen to the radio.
Oh, that's right.
It was that weather radio. So we all listened to it, and we were laughing about it because it was like this robotic voice.
Yes.
And it was every 4 hours it would switch. So you'd have to wait, or 3 hours, you have to wait for the new update. And like sometimes it wouldn't switch. So you'd be like up at 3 a.m. and you listen to the whole thing, which is like 10 minutes. And it tells you all this dumb stuff that you don't care about, Fremont and, the Delta. And then it didn't switch. So then you have to listen to it all again. And your wife's like, go to bed. Yeah. And we all did that all the time. And it was like trying to figure out when to go. And the end of the day, and this is still the case, the best way to know is to go. Like, go be there. And then if it's good, you'll be there. And if it's not, you didn't miss it. You were there in case it was good. But if you think you're going to figure it out, even with all the information today, you still will be wrong a fair amount of the time.
Of course. Yeah.
It'd be smart to just go.
So it's still kind of wild, that area south of San Francisco before Santa Cruz. Were you guys also looking for other waves that were maybe similar? Were you exploring, I guess?
I mean, they all had, when I got out here, the guys from San Francisco to Pacifica to Half Moon Bay, and then, that overlaps with Santa Cruz, they had all been around here. And it was kind of a mystery that no one really figured out that Mavericks was Mavericks, but it's not super obvious that you can see it on a lot of days.
Right.
And it doesn't necessarily look like as good a wave as it is from the beach. But anyway, yeah, we looked around a little, and I still look around a little, but it's seemingly pretty obvious that this is the spot here for this kind of waves. And there's really not another one, as far as we know, anywhere near here or anywhere.
Okay. Going to Hawaii and stuff, was that appealing at all? Like Waimea or anything?
It's fun for me. Interestingly, like I surfed Mavericks quite a bit before I went to Hawaii and surfed Waimea. So by the time I got over there, I was really like dialed in. In the middle 90s, we had those big winners. And, when Fu passed away and Jay, and like I surfed all those sessions. So by the time I went to Waimea, I was very ready for that. And it was just fun for me. But it's a kind of a downer, because the Mavericks, when you get to the bottom of the wave and you're bottom turning, it's like just starting kind of.
Okay.
Like you don't know what you're going to get. Like you could get a huge reform that's bigger than the takeoff. You know, you do a cutback and the thing loads up on itself. At Waimea, it's pretty much over. And I know it's different when it's huge, and it wasn't huge when I surfed it, but you know, right when you make it to the middle of the drop, it's pretty much you won. You know, kind of you're already kind of like bouncing around, and then you kind of milk it, but it just gets less and less. And they usually don't connect to the shore break, but the kind of thing that's on the giant day. So, you know, on a normal 15 to 20 foot day, Waimea is kind of an anti-climax compared to Mavericks, you know, on a 15-foot day, because Mavericks on a 15-foot day can really go off.
Yeah.
But I could talk to those guys that surf Big Waimea, and like, if it's feeling the whole bay, it's a different feel. Like that's like a slabby ocean thing, and then it would be really intense. So I didn't surf it like that, but I had a lot of fun in Hawaii. But I also was like, oh my gosh, there's so many good surfers, and
competition.
You know, and when Jaws came, I wasn't really into toe surfing, and when they first were paddling Jaws, I was going to go before it got to be too big a deal. And, you know, honestly, I don't have the means to just take surf trips. I had little kids.
Yeah.
So no one's going to pay me to go there. So I had to find a project that sent me somewhere. But I got to do a lot of cool stuff with the Big Wave World Tour, and I got to be in a lot of events, and nobody really made much money, but we had a great time.
Was that important to have these events? Is it important to have big wave events? 2-part question, I guess.
You know, I don't know. I mean, it's a natural thing, but it's also weird in that that's not what we do. You know, it's not about winning or beating your friend necessarily. The tragedy for some events is if it's not run well, it can really be a bummer.
Yeah.
For everybody, and it has a huge impact on a place like Maverick. So I'm not against events, but I've seen a lot of them kind of go sideways, and it's really disappointing. You know, and like who's doing it for what reason, and how it makes certain people behave, and so whatever. It's worked in some ways. It was really cool, and in other ways, it was really disappointing. And you know, I could feel the exclusivity and the favoritism and that kind of stuff that isn't part of surfing in general. And then, you know, recently something came up where it was a fun one where Mavericks finals, Greg Long, before the final, he said, I was in it with them, and they said, oh, how about we split this money six ways?
Yes.
Even thing. And I was like, sweet, you know, done, you know, and then he killed us, which was funny.
Yeah.
Because he was too nice to beat us for the money. But the next year they made a rule that we weren't allowed to share the money. Like, like how anti, like these guys really don't get the spirit of the game here. Like, you know, so whatever. It was always at odds with itself. And like for me to like get in the way of Greg, or, you know, I'm the one who let him out there, which is why it sort of feels wrong for him to beat me with my own, you know, game. But then at the other side of it, like for me to beat him, I have to play dirty, you know, like if it was really like I have to win, I have to like, you know, fake him out or get in his way or, you know, grab his leash or whatever they would do. Like, and that's just not how we play, because you also could kill your friend.
Right.
You know, the rules pit you against each other in a way that's not natural. And then, you know, the scoring thing and the subjectivity of it. And there was never one time where someone in the finals wasn't pissed off about it. Like even the guys that made it to the finals are mad, you know, and with good reason usually, because they're like, oh, I got the number wrong. Like,
yeah.
It's just so funny where everyone spends all this time and energy, and then you're like, you know, eliminated because someone gave the other guy your score. Yeah, it's like, hey, I got 3 waves. They're like, oh no, you only caught 2. I'm like, I caught 3. And they're like, well, someone else got your other ride. Oh, okay. And he made it and you didn't.
Yeah.
Like, what? So that kind of stuff happened, you know, so that was a bummer.
The other side of that is too that it's hard to make money off big waves, like unless you're serving contests or there is contests available. You have to have an 8 to 5 kind of thing.
I know, but there's a sort of this other thing like that everyone should be allowed to, or what? Like wow.
I don't know. I don't know the answer. I'm just throwing that out there.
Like, oh, we have to give them an event so they have a way to make a living. Well, at what expense? You know?
Yeah,
you
no,
have
good
to
point.
Wreck the place to like for 3 people to get a paycheck. And the thing was always set up so that 1 or 2 people actually made the most. You know, the promoter or whatever was the guy running away with the money.
Of course.
If it worked the way he wanted to.
Yeah.
The surfers weren't going to make much anyhow. You know, so whatever. You know, it did push it in certain ways, but also you think that would elevate the performances, but sometimes it went the other way because everyone was just riding a giant board to keep each other off of it.
Okay.
Yeah, so it wasn't about performance. Like for Neff, you know, it's like, oh, how do you want to see the guys surf the best? Well, if they're all riding like 6-inch thick, 12-foot boards, no one's going to be able to surf.
Right. They're just going to go.
Right? They're just trying to keep each other off the wave. It's just who gets the wave first and keeps the other guys off of it.
Okay.
And so the rules dictate how people play. And the rules weren't favoring, performance. It was favoring catch a giant one and go straight.
Right.
And like, as if you give guys points for not even making it, that was a big thing for me. It was in the XXL awards too, like where you have a big wave award and the guy basically takes a closeout and goes straight. He shouldn't get a 9. He shouldn't win the prize when it's a hopeless he's avalanche on himself. Like, just because it's the tallest wave, that's not a successful ride. So in a contest, particularly, you should be like favoring guys making it out into the channel, because people who watch this sport don't understand. Like, why is that guy get a 9? He got smashed.
Mm-hmm.
This guy made it. He got a 4. They would skew the scoring to be sensational and like giving out like wipeout awards and stuff like that. Like you're incentivizing reckless play, just because it's, everyone loves a good wipeout, but doesn't mean you should pay people to wipe out.
Yeah.
So anyhow.
Does anyone intentionally wipe out on a wave that can kill them?
No, but that's one of the things is when the guys will come to do the event, they're like, "Oh, we're going to give 10,000 to the best wipeout." Like, that's not a good idea.
That's not.
Like, because there's guys who be like, "Well, shit, I'm tired and I'm not going to win, but I'm just going to
drop
Hail Mary one because I need some money." Like, it's just not ethical, man. Like, surfing with people who would do it. Like, I didn't necessarily need all the money at some points. So, like, I'm not going to risk my life for 10 grand, but some of those people may need to, and it's not cool to just do that to the whole group. Again, like, unsafe. Rewarding recklessness, rewarding basically, dangerous play, which endangers everybody. Like, if someone does that, they could kill the guy behind them. You keep someone else from taking off on it. Someone has to try to rescue the guy. There's like 10 layers of risk that go with a bad attempt that you're incentivizing.
That's
so anyway,
true.
That was one of the things we have a problem with that, and like how they do it, how they judge it. And I was on these panels. I was on the judge a lot of the times, and it was like, it's not even
right.
I was like, come on, man. Like, we should really measure it, right? Like, aren't we going to really pay attention? And they weren't honest with a lot of it. So you just go, well, this is a joke.
Do you feel like they should still run an event? I mean, it sounds like you're anti running an event.
No, I'm with it. Honestly, I just telling what went wrong.
I see that.
I hear
you.
When it did well.
Yeah.
Like, one of the things that they do in Hawaii, the Buffalo thing out in Makaha, it's like a community-based event, have a bunch of different layers to it, as opposed to like a dog-eat-dog, like knife fight.
Like WSL.
Like, I'm gonna close Mavericks down, not let anybody out in the water, do all this stuff. Like, that doesn't really fit anymore the way it used to.
Okay.
The original contest, we invited everybody who was in it. There was nobody else who would want to play that was not in it.
All the guys that are
the first couple of years, it was like everybody. But then now there's 1,000 guys that would want to be in it. So you immediately have to uninvite, 980.
Right.
And that's a lot of pissed off guys. And some of them really deserve to be in it, and women.
Yeah, of course.
And then you're going to shut it all down and not let anybody out there. But, so a community-based one where you have some other stuff that doesn't, block and control it in a way. And then if it, benefits the community or some other charity, that's what I was trying to get them all to do, is like, it can't be benefiting some
Joe,
producer. Yeah. Yes, just because you want to inherit the Indy 500 doesn't mean you're allowed to run away with the golden goose.
Yeah.
Like, nobody's going to support you doing that, so don't try it. Right. So if it's giving back to the community, we could probably get it. You're never going to get everybody, but you can get quite a few people to support something if you do something that's well managed and transparent and everyone understands what the motive.
Yeah.
If you're trying to be a shell game with it and I'm not going to tell you what's in the books, well, nobody's going to support you.
Yeah. What about the lineup today versus in the 90s? Is it safe out there?
Yeah, and I can take it again both ways. Like, I understand why everybody wants to come. So it's, the attraction for me is obvious. But really, mostly I've been super proud of how everybody surfs.
Mm-hmm.
Like all the young people in particular, like a lot of really skilled, very competent, well thought out approaches. Like you saying, oh, people coming out with jet skis and maybe shouldn't be out there. There's less of that than you might have feared. And part of it is because it is scary and it is heavy. And it doesn't matter who's on your jet ski, they can't get you.
Right.
If you're in a really bad spot, if they can pick you up, that's because you were, lucky. So if you're in a 2 or 3 wave hold down, nobody's getting you. They've done it that way, and I think there's definitely a little growing pains with everybody wanting to bring their own jet ski and that kind of stuff. If people are sort of let it be like at Waimea, it's kind of a paddle in reserve for most of the normal days. The waves really take care of it, and the best surfers are able to catch waves that most people don't want to go near. And there's a whole bunch of middle of the road guys like me now. They're in between and trying to pick off one or two here and there. And you don't need to have a ton of rides to have a really fun session. And I prefer to see someone go for a couple, the young guys get a couple of good ones than no one, I don't want to be in their way. And I don't want them anymore. So, only the slow moving part of the herd is the one I'm chasing. So it's great to watch everybody pushing it, good camaraderie in that. And, when someone's really up to it and goes for it and you can feel it, that's awesome. And we share that. And I feel kind of ageless in that, like the same thing I loved when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
Like Jack Snyder, you say, he's a young guy coming out. I had no idea who he, never heard of him, whatever. And you could see he's having a blast. There's a whole bunch of guys that sometimes really got 60-year spread. There's a guy out there who's 70 and there's a guy out there who's 14.
Right.
It's pretty amazing, what a cool, lineup it is.
Is it get dangerous? Let's say you're like in the mid zone kind of thing and a huge set
For
comes
sure.
through.
There's times. Yeah, what I'd say, and that's another piece about the event. When the event was going and everybody wants to be in it, there's this whole thing of how do you pick who gets to go? And they all have to make a show of it. And when they're there, they want everyone to know it. And that changes how everybody surfs. Now there's not that pressure on it. Yeah. And in a way, like I said, you don't need a ton of rides to have a good session. And if people are, sharing and taking turns on a consistent day, it's not that big a deal for, 20 or 30 or 40 people to have a good time together. Mm-hmm. At some point, that's too many. And depending on who they are and how they're surfing, that's too many. Mm-hmm. With the jet skis and stuff, though, what you have is 3 jet skis is too many.
Okay.
They can own the whole lineup. If you start towing, and that's what we learned early in the 90s. When you start towing, 3 tow teams can own a giant day pretty well.
Right.
5 is a crowd. 7 tow teams is just crazy.
Yeah.
Right. So you can put 50 people paddling and they can kind of coexist pretty comfortably on a big day. Mm-hmm. Helping each other catch waves and sharing and stuff. But for 3 or 4 jet skis, it's the same problem. That's too many. But how people surf, they're reckless, they're dangerous, and the waves kind of show that pretty quickly. For the most part, we don't. People just figure it out.
Yeah. Do you guys call
the
people
ocean
out?
Shows you who can do it. There's a little bit of barking here and there, but the younger folks have to defend their area.
Okay.
But Mavericks does do it.
Of course.
For the most part. If you just go, here's one for you, loud guy, you want to catch one, go ahead.
Yeah.
Well,
speaking of growing pains, how did you approach surfing it after something like Mark Poo dying or people actually dying there and going out after?
Yeah, I didn't know if I would, especially Foo in specific, because I was really, really into it. And I wondered if I would go back because it was kind of windy for a while right after that. Mm-hmm. So it was perfect for 10 days in a row. And then he died. And that next day it was shitty. And I was gone for a while. The next swell was right around New Year's, and I ended up out there by myself, and I knew all my lineups. I knew everything, and I was I just don't know if it's going to be fun anymore. Mm-hmm. And a wave came right to me, and I just remember this so vividly. It just came right to me, and I was yeah, here you go. And it was just the most perfect. Caught it perfectly, rode it perfectly, and I was yep, I love this. So yeah, so I do and have thought about it with Sion. I was on the beach when Sion passed away. I was with the CPR crew before the paramedics got there, and he looked normal, perfect. And he and I shared a thing in that we both had young daughters. He had 2 daughters and I had 2 daughters. So I didn't know him well, but I saw him surfing and I knew of him. Yeah. And I knew, that he was as heavy as they came, and he was just laying on the beach dead. And I was man, I just feel you could just zap him. There's nothing wrong with him from this morning till now. He looks exactly like he did, except for there's no life in him. And ambulance guys came to take over for us. We hand him off, and then you could see they were not trying.
Yeah,
it was they're used to it. If they don't pronounce him dead, they just keep. But I'm hey man, this is a superhuman dude. He might come back. I know it never happens, but go ahead, just keep pushing, right? You never know. And he has little kids or whatever, and they're yeah, okay, right, whatever, we do. But I could tell that they had kind of given up on him.
Oh boy.
Same thing. I think back to it and what he was doing, I have done. Fu and him both were in waves that I've continued to mess with, and I don't think I'm more fit than they were or more capable. I know I'm not as good a surfer as either one of them. Mm-hmm. So I just got to play smart and try to do the right thing when you get in those spots. But if you get in one, there's nothing you're going to be able to do about it. And that's just part of it. And, It sucks. But like I said, you're on the highway.
That's it.
There's nothing you can do. Yeah.
I get it.
That's where you get it. Not going to drive. But I know. So I don't have to go in the water, but I do. I don't feel less safe for the most part than I do the rest of my life. Right. Like, like how, what am I, is it a super crazy risk that I'm taking? Or like, no, it doesn't feel that way.
Okay. Hearing you sound so confident, you know the risk. So it's, how do you, there's no argument there. What about your family? What do they think and say?
Well, particularly my wife, you know, the kids, I think they're like, whatever. They just always knew Dad's
was a big wave guy.
Friends with Twiggy and Greg. And but they just, and I don't think they overthought about it, the risk part, you know, they were too little. And now I don't, you know, they're 20, they don't care anymore either. I don't know. But my wife, I'm sure, you know, both things. She knew me as I was just getting into it. I met her in 1994. So she was like central to that first frothing part of me.
Right.
And she did not really like surfers. And funny enough, it was like a black mark on my resume, which is this well-earned stereotype of all the girls. Like, oh, yeah, don't date a surfer. He'll blow you off at prom.
Right.
Because the waves are good or whatever. So I overcame the stigma of being a surfer and kind of won her over. But she did not really like it until, and this was a kind of a fun thing. We went to Hawaii. I made a Mavericks documentary that got in the Hawaiian Film Festival.
Okay, cool.
And they flew me over there, and she was with me, and we were on the North Shore, and there was Peter Cole, who was at the time like 70, and this guy named Flippy Hoffman, who's also a famous older guy, right? They wouldn't have known him. There were two guys, old guys in shorts at the beach in Sunset, and I was idolizing them and going, I can't believe these guys are right here, and we're just talking, and I had basically just finished surfing, and Peter said, are you going to go out? And I'm like, yes. So I went back out with them, like stayed wet and went back out, and then my wife watched us, and then we came in, and they were standing there, and the one guy says, Flippy says to Peter, oh, have you looked at Ricky Griggs' book, something or other? And Pete says, well, no, I'm going to write a book about you. And then Flippy's like, well, no, you can't write a book about me because I got all these other stories. And then he's like, all right. And they just start walking off, and they walk down the trail because Flippy lived there by Sunset. And then they just were razzing each other. And my wife looked, and she's like, oh my God, that's so cool. She's like, I can see it. I see why you like this. Like, see, these guys are past it. You know, their grandfathers. Right. They just caught a couple waves. They're going back, and they're razzing each other like little kids.
Right, like teenagers.
And she's like, I see this like past what everybody else sees it is. This is a lifestyle that is like transcends all this other stuff.
That's rad.
And you're like distracted by this, you know, superficial like branding of the, you know, the alpha guy or whatever, the big wave thing. But on the other side of it is this like really genuine sort of passionate love of the ocean and, you know, whatever. And that it doesn't go away.
Yeah.
You know, it just transforms from one thing to another. These guys were crazy,
that's a great story.
Alpha males in their 20s, and now they're not.
Right.
And she's like, okay. So I don't think until then, I don't think she really dug us. But then, you know, she'd met more, and the Big Wave group is eccentric, you know, people. So if you were to come to the Mavericks party, you have Kelly Slater and Doc Renneker.
Yeah.
Vince Collier, you know, I mean, it was like, who are these guys? Like, they're from all walks. Like, one guy's a lawyer, this guy's a doctor, that guy's a who knows what he was, you know, surfboard shaper, you know, gangsters, whatever, you know, an interesting group, right? You'd have to go to like an art opening to find this kind of weird,
right? And they're all friends, they're friendly.
Yeah, they get in a certain way, you know, they share this thing, and that thing is a bond, you know, a cool like Brian Keelana thing, like stronger than. Whatever. You're separated by the ocean, but you're connected by the water. Like we are sharing this thing that is like bigger than most of our other relationships in our life. We have that intergenerationally. Like, I never surfed with Greg Knoll, but we became really good friends, and we shared stories. In a way, I feel like I surf with him more than I surf with my friends.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Totally. Like, that connection is so, and most of my friends don't surf the waves like Greg Knoll and I surfed. So all my other friends that are normal surf people, you know, they're not in this other group. And Greg Knoll is like, he's like, man, I just don't really like people, you know, I don't like hanging out talking to people, but he's like, you're cool. I could sit with you and Twiggy and Greg Long and just talk all day. Cause this is, you know, this is the shit, you know, this is bitching, you know, whatever. He was such a funny idiot, but that, you know, it's like, people are boring. I don't really want to hear what they have to say, but you guys, you know, I think we're really boring to everybody else. My wife, I don't want to hear any more stories, but we had such a good time talking about this thing that we love so much, which is this weird, frivolous pursuit of whatever the heck that is, a big wave, is this pure, driven love of something, you know, and if there was a real money title thing to it, it would cheapen it,
Mhm.
like it's cooler this way. So
Yeah, makes sense.
it's fun. I like it. I'm having fun all of this. And, that vibe is really different than other things,
Yeah.
like big mountain guys, like people share it anywhere that there's a really like fringe group. You
Mhm.
find that kind of weird camaraderie.
Yeah. One thing I do want to talk about too, back to Mavericks, is the right gets most of the attention, 90% of the attention, if not more. How's the left at Mavericks?
Yeah, well, it's much more crowded now. It's funny. The thing about it, the left is on a lot of days, on a big day, there's not a lot of lefts because it will just get eaten.
Okay.
So like a bigger one, like where Pete Mel backdoored the bull
Yeah.
on the big days, like that runs into the left. So you can't surf the left on a certain tide or, size limit. But on a normal day, what normally would happen is if we're going to the right, guys are taking off as deep as they can on the right. They're kind of airdropping. The peak at Mavericks is a pretty quick, like catapult drop. So it's easier to backdoor it.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly the left is easier to backdoor from the shoulder of the right. So we end up crossing.
Oh, yeah.
So it's kind of working out good for me with Luca and a couple of other kids that are young, want to go left. And I know they want to go left. So they're taking off on the shoulder. They're keeping everybody else from dropping in on it.
Okay.
I'll let them go by me. I'll be behind them. Let them go in front of me. And they go left. And then I'll stall and go right.
Okay.
Right. So it's kind of like a crisscross. But, it's easy to shoulder hop it. It's really hard to take off in the middle of the peak. And on some days, it's like impossible. So the only way to catch the left is to backdoor it. And the right is hard to backdoor from the left a lot of times, but you can kind of like slip right into it and go right. But if you slipped right into it, the left would be an airdrop. You can take off deep and go right. This is about the different angles though, too. So some angles it's okay, but there's days when the left is really impossible to catch from the peak, but you could backdoor it and then you're right where you want to be, like under it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they want. So it's a little bit of a crisscross on the takeoffs, and that's what we're learning. It's like, who wants to go left? Yeah, and I know they want to go left sometimes. They're like, hey, I know you want to go left, but they'll be way over, far to the south.
Okay.
Wanting to go left.
Yeah.
But there'll be like 20 people that want to go right that are behind them. They'll go from. So anyhow, that's a thing. And it's really treacherous because if you fall, you're in the worst spot. That's the deal. Like,
yeah.
One of the reasons nobody would go over there on a lot of days, even if you make it, you're in a dangerous spot. And if you don't know what the currents are doing, we've had the more recent years, we've had a lot of west swell, so that makes it a little easier over there and not as treacherous. So that's going to be one of those things where a certain day will be like either user friendly or really
super
dangerous,
yeah.
And it's not obvious. Yeah, it's like a slight different thing, and it'll be like, oh man, everybody who goes left is in trouble.
Right.
But
it takes someone going
so
left to
figure
it out,
sure.
I guess, right?
Yeah, and people did. Jeff, Jeff first went left at the beginning, and if you're a goofy footer, you've always been looking at it, and the pipeline guys are always looking at it. But it's those days are kind of rare.
Okay.
The average day, the big lefts aren't that good. Like some days, it's not like nobody ever goes that way. It's like it's not that opportunity all the time.
If you're plan on going left and it's working that day, do you have maybe your partner, your team partner, if it's ski out there, staying on that side, or how does that work?
I mean, that's made it a little bit more user friendly because someone could like pick you up in case you're in a really bad situation there. And usually they want someone to be shooting it, so there's someone over on that side on most of those days.
Okay.
Yeah, but and I'll go back to it. Nobody can help you when you really when really bad things happen, and this is where there's a little fallacy to this, like the vest and the pickups. Like it literally does not matter.
Yeah.
When they get you, then you were fine. Like for the most part, if they're able to pick you up, that's because you're okay. When they can't get you, which is when you would really want the help, there's nothing they can do.
Yeah.
If you don't come to the surface, there's nothing they can do. And sometimes when they double pull the inflation, doesn't always make you float because the whirlpool is so violent. At pressure, the amount of air in it, even when you fully inflate it, is not enough to overcome. And or the surge and stuff is just so violent, you're not, retrievable anyway. Okay. So it's like even if you're in the whitewater, you're just bouncing around. So they can't always get you. At the end of the day, we're all human, so it can happen.
What about performance-wise? Can you perform any more than what they're doing now, backdooring it? And
I really think there's a huge opportunity for it.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, the guys have been pushing it. When you can look at it, just look at what the average pro surfers are doing in like 10 to 12 foot waves.
Okay.
Now, what they did when I was a kid to what they do now. It's like almost unrecognizable, right? Like how, John Florence surfs.
Yeah.
It's like, what the hell, So the Florence brothers alone could come to Mavericks and surf for a few sessions and probably change the bar. But the first thing has to happen is we was changing the boards. Like if everybody's riding big, huge old boards, that's not going to change
performance
as quickly as it could. Yeah. So, and there's one problem that stifles it is we don't get that many days to test. So you can't just figure it out like you can, like windsurfing or whatever, or you go in a wind tunnel and figure it out. Mavericks is only a few times a year, and then everyone's hesitant to make big changes because they're, a little nervous. It's a little bit of consequence, and also what worked last time, so you kind of want to work off of that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So big wave boards design is like slower than regular, but I just think in particular in the normal sessions, like the regular 15 foot or 18 between the giant and the not breaking, there's tons of performance potential, and Mavericks is a really long wave with a lot of really neat sections to it. So we'll see, and maybe I'll be wrong, but I don't know that there's going to be a ton more to be done with like the top frontier, just because you have to catch the waves on a pretty big board.
Yeah. Okay.
But what you can see is the guys catching really big waves on little boards and surfing a lot better.
Yeah.
So if you're not afraid of it anymore, you can spin around underneath it. You don't need a 10-6. You can do it on an 8-6 or maybe even a 7-6. And if someone catches a Mavericks wave on a 7-6, just take a look at toe surfing to see how it could go. And it just goes quickly to something different. Yeah.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Speaking of boards, how's your equipment changed since the 90s to now? Has it changed out there?
It has a lot. And I say that it's like, it was slow, but it's moving. And interestingly, I've been riding a lot of single fins again.
Really? Interesting.
Which when I first started surfing Mavericks, everybody rode them. Then they kind of got into the thrusters, and I was the first one to ride a quad in the contest, actually.
Wow.
I didn't like it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, quads were pretty big
all of that
for a while.
Yeah, but always reinventing the wheel with all of it. But George Greenough, of all people, had an epiphany from Australia, and he was like, you guys got to try these edge bottoms, which is a pole-based bottom with a double, like kind of a double concave built into it with a ridge line inside the template. So it's kind of like a step bottom.
Okay.
So it looks more like a boat bottom than a surfboard bottom.
Wow, okay.
Anyway, he was like adamant that we should try these at Mavericks, and they made a couple, and Mark Andrini was the one who shaped one. And George has kind of been separated from surfing a bit, and did windsurfing and a bunch of other boat design stuff. And he's in his 80s now.
Yeah.
Anyway, he sent all this stuff over. He goes, you guys got to try this. And I rode one of them, and I had ridden hundreds of Mavericks boards, more than that, like a ton of boards. And I just was like stupefied, like how fast it went.
Wow.
I was just like, oh my gosh, it turns so well. So that's what I've been riding the last 4 or 5 years. And I'm like getting too old to perform much, but I'm having a blast. And the main thing is like, it's free in a way that the old boards weren't. When you catch the wave, it like planes up. So it's sort of like how when you come out of the harbor on a boat, you switch from like putt to like up. Once it lifts, now you have less drag, and that's what these boards do. And it starts to happen pretty quickly, and the feeling is like total freedom. Like it's amazing. And then, I wish I was a pro surfer. It was like, I don't know what I could do with it. I'll try to get these younger guys to play with it. But, it's very different looking. Like people were pretty scared at first to even try it. And it's different. And it's hard for the shapers to like wrap their head around because there's so much new ideas floating in it. But you have 2 templates, 2 rockers, this extra release. According to George, it's like 20% less drag, and he's doing the physics of it, the wetted surface. The reason the boat goes faster is because there's less water dragging on the hull once it planes up. And that's what we're doing. And at Mavericks, it pays off in spades because halfway down the wave, the thing just accelerates. Like it's so free.
Wow.
And then we have kind of a dead section in the middle, and you could just, instead of having to wade around or almost hop to get to the next ledge, I could just do big swoops, and it's like as free as it could be.
Wow.
So I wish I could have had this thing in the old days, but I have a lot of old boards, and they are beautiful, on the wall, but I just would never want to ride them anymore because it feels like someone tied a sandbag to it. And they were all good boards, and they're great for their time, but this is different. And I really think that that's one of the potential things where you can get a board that's a little bigger than a normal board volume wise, but it's actually short, and then it planes like a short board and turns like a short board. So, which is always the key in big waves, is how can we catch a big wave and then have it be a smaller board, so it's nobody wants to surf a 10-6.
Right.
You just want to paddle it.
Yeah. They just want to get into the wave.
everybody's been doing the same thing forever. So it is not a new shape. It's what he was doing with his knee boards in the 60s. IPA and the Camel Brothers, like Bonzers, like people have been messing with this.
Okay.
It's just less of it in big waves and more in like fun board, fish board stuff.
Okay.
But it works in big waves. So I'm trying to get Neff on it.
Yeah. Well, okay. We'll talk about Neff. Is there a particular shaper that kind of knows Mavericks that is shaping?
Well, there's early on, Jeff made some of my first boards, and Bradshaw made the first one I wrote out there.
Oh, really?
And
okay.
At that time, I thought you want guys that surf big waves to be making your big wave boards. Yeah. But I mean, Gary Linden was a little guy, and Mark Andrini's a little guy who doesn't even ride big waves, but he makes good boards. So I think it doesn't necessarily always have to be that the guy has to do it to understand it. But with the edge bottoms, and Neff is a real fun guy because he does open-minded, very creative type of idea. You have to be able to let go some of the old notions to make the jump. In like other industries and stuff, you have the head of the department is the last guy to recognize that the old way is the wrong way, because he's so schooled in it. He's an expert in the old thing, and for him to go back to the drawing board, it's much easier for like a grad student to be like, wait a second, I'm going to study this instead of that.
Right.
So you want to try to find somebody who is not totally built into their old designs to take this idea. But a lot of the boards are working. Kai is messing with stuff, obviously Paizel and John, and those guys are pushing the front people up and down around here, and the surfers are better and fit, trained martial arts, diet. Nobody was doing that I know of in the old days. So you have better stunt pilots than you used to have.
Okay.
And we have a better way of manufacturing it, recreating it, measuring it. So it should translate into better performances. So we wait and see, but it's fun and exciting. There's no question that we haven't invented the perfect board yet. So
you're saying open-mindedness, we need more of it.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at it, well, and George is a great resource as a design person.
Of course.
He's worked in a lot of different industries, and, he's like, in order to like have a decent feedback loop, you have to have enough people playing.
Okay. And
you don't get good data without people messing with it. And if you're only making tiny adjustments, you're not making any progress. So we can't go like, how far is too wide? Like, you have to go too wide to know that you went too wide. So if you're just going 1/8 of an inch every year, you're
takes years
off by an inch. Yeah, you can take it 20 years to figure out that you should have jumped way out there.
Right. Okay.
So that's part of it. Was like, let's go ahead and make sure we're overdoing it on some of these, so that we can scale it back into where we know, dial it in.
Bigger jumps and experimentation.
Yeah, because you have a totally new idea. So you just have no idea how's it going to go.
Okay.
Like, what is too thick? What is too wide? When this whole bottom shape is totally different. All those dimensions are based on an antiquated, form that we're not using anymore. So this board pivots is more easily. The rail can be really narrow compared to the thickness of the whole board. The Stretch was doing it with the step decks, and those guys there was tandem boards that Stewart made a long time ago, where it was like a 5 or 6 inch thick board with a step in the deck, so the rail wasn't so thick. When you start doing that, now you can go, what is too thick then? Because the thickness isn't out on the rail; it's in the middle of the board,
in chest or whatever.
So you got to go back and understand it. It doesn't really matter what you used to think you knew about thickness. Actually, doesn't matter, because the rail's not going to have it. So we're learning.
When it's 18 foot, how many guys are willing to experiment and try something dramatically different?
Yeah, and that's where maybe I was perfect, because I've surfed so many days, and I'm not like, I don't care.
Yes.
On a certain level, like, I just want to test stuff.
Sense.
I'm more excited about trying different boards. And we learned a lot when we would do catch 2 and switch. Like Twiggy and Greg Long and I go out there and like catch 2 and switch, catch 2 and switch, catch 2 and switch.
Okay.
And then, instead of going all the way back to the beach and like eating, lunch and going back out, now you don't even know which one was which.
Right.
When you caught 2 on this one, caught 2 on that one, and got back on your original one, now you totally feel the difference to the 3 boards.
Yes.
So we have them in the same neighborhood. So getting that kind of thing. And then, whenever I did have something new, and this goes back though, even in the old days, I always wanted to ride shorter boards, and I'm not a performance surfer. So it wasn't like I'm trying to show, I could perform better than everybody. I just have more fun doing that. And then I'm so used to the wave that I can go ahead and catch try it on different boards to make it more fun for me. Whereas if you only surf there a few times or you only travel there and this is your session, you're not going to waste it on an experimental board.
Right. Yeah.
So that's why I'm like, it's not a big deal for me.
Mm-hmm.
And the traveling actually was funny. It was like half the time when I went to Peru or Chile or South Africa, my boards didn't come.
Oh, so you're...
I was like, I learned to ride on somebody else's because I got nothing.
Right. Yeah.
Twiggy always rode big, thick boards for his volume, and they worked for me. So I would end up riding Twiggy's boards in faraway places and waves I've never been in. Whatever. You find shapes that are safe and reliable or predictable, and you make the best of it. But we very rarely got to have exactly what we wanted.
Okay.
When you show up at those places, like a lot of times you only have like 2 days notice and you're like, oh crap, it's on. Like who has a board in Peru?
Yeah. No kidding.
That they will let me ride on the day they want all their boards.
Right.
Yeah. That was the other problem was like,
yeah, that can be,
you want it on the same day as everybody else. So.
You were talking about now a lot of these big wave surfers, the newer generation, are about fitness and health and stuff. Is there still a beard guzzling partier that's charging Mavericks or any big wave for that matter? Or is everyone so hyper focused on being healthy?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a cross section.
Oh, is there? Okay, cool.
Yeah. I mean, not everybody can be just totally, geared to it like that. So I think there's a balance. And, for all of us, there has to be some balance. All work and no play makes nobody fun. If you're too uptight about it, it also won't work. I've seen that a fair amount where someone's like built it up and they're training and they're doing all this stuff. And I'm like, just come surf, man. Like,
yeah.
You're mystified it to the degree of like your anxiety is going to keep you from catching anything because you're so, worried about every consequence and just let it go and catch a wave. There's a fair amount to be said for that.
Right.
The old approach of just go have fun and enjoy it and don't worry about every scenario. So, but obviously you got to be fit. You got to know what you're doing. And if you don't, you'll be in trouble quick.
Yeah. Let's change gears a little bit. You being in the movie industry and stuff, and you also a stuntman. You got to work with Chasing Mavericks in the movie. How'd that all happen?
Yeah, I worked in film pretty much from the beginning of when I moved out here.
Yeah.
The surfing thing was a passion thing. And like a lot of people that are working surf, whatever it is, they have a different job. So I was working in film, doing editing and working in on NFL films and doing grip work, lighting, and was making documentaries. And I shot surfing whenever I could, and whenever there was anything that had to do with surfing, I would take that job. And then when Riding Giants was made, I was lucky enough to meet. Stacy Peralta came up and he had seen my film, which was that documentary I got to go to Hawaii for. And he was like, this is the perfect movie in that it was speaking to non-surfers. Like I made it for PBS and it was I could show my big wave friends, but I grew up in Connecticut with people who never surfed.
Right.
So I could explain it to them. Stacy really liked that. And we got to work on Riding Giants. I got to go to Sundance and meet Greg Knoll and Jerry Lopez and awesome stuff. And through that, when other projects similar to that came around, that people knew that I had either had the stock footage or had, some knowledge of some of that stuff. And that there's a crossover, in commercials. And, it was in the old days, the surf videos were totally separate, really. Now there's some more people working in both, but it was kind of like low end surf movie versus high end NFL films.
Yeah.
And now surfing is like got, at least some backing in some of that. So, American Express ad or, Budweiser uses surfing, which wasn't the case in the old days.
Surfing now.
So there's a lot of TVs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just got into it on that. And, Chasing Mavericks, I was friends with Jay, the real Jay, and was part of the first group to like pitch that we could make the movie because they were afraid, could they even film out there? So I had to convince the studio that we could do it without killing everybody.
Wow. Okay.
And so that was fun. So I got to do it. And that was my big break into like some of the other projects where I'm not just, a crew member who worked for NFL or whatever, but I was the guy who had, done the big shoots at Mavericks. Yeah. So this recent one was a scuba dive movie, but I got to be the Marine coordinator because of Mavericks. So there's no surfing in it, but I got to be in it because of my surfing.
Yeah, because of the ocean knowledge.
Yeah, and it's there's a lot of similarities. And in the end, there's a scuba scene where he's trying to swim through some boulders, and he gets kind of the equivalent of washed in the rocks at Mavericks. So he just had to film something that was sort of like a surfing scene, even though there's not really surfing. But the knowledge, the surf knowledge, and of course the weather knowledge and the wave knowledge is very useful in a lot of different things. And particularly anytime someone's filming anywhere near the water, it's good to have a surfer.
100%. Have you met famous people because of your passion of surfing? It led into all these different directions.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I was talking to him this morning. Some of the people that hire me because I was a surfer. So when Mavericks first came, out into the public, no one had heard of it. And then there was a lot of film or sport folks have, beach or surf, hobbies at least.
Yeah.
So they were like, "Oh, the Mavericks guy, yeah, tell us about this place," So I had to get out a job, and they're like, "No, he's a dolly grip because I want to talk to him all day."
Okay.
So I'd be like pushing the camera up and down on the tracks and I wouldn't have usually got that spot, but the director wanted to talk to me about the waves. So that, of course, got to meet Gerard Butler and do stuff with him, but there is, and it was the case on this recent movie that they all look at me as the big wave guy, not, I'm not just the guy on the crew. They're like, "Oh, I heard we have a big Mavericks guy. Oh, you're him. Oh, okay."
Oh, cool.
So it's like a calling card. It breaks down some of the barriers, and everybody has a surf story or the time they got caught inside or whatever.
Yes.
And, it's pretty fun. You get to always hear that.
Yeah. Instant friends kind of almost.
Yeah. That's maybe one of the best parts about it is that it does transcend so much. If you can let go of the, what your preconceived notions of it. What do people experience when they first go to the ocean? They feel the waves hitting their feet. Like every little kid, jumps and plays in the froth, and like that, that thing is like a shared experience that goes, around the world, and everybody has some version of it. And, the time it didn't go the way you wanted, or the one that you got that was the best ride, or, even if people don't surf, I've seen it over and over that they can relate to it, and they could be a landlocked guy from, Ohio and never seen the ocean, but they understand, why it's fun.
Yeah. One thing about Mavericks that a lot of waves in the world, there's a handful that can make you famous. You can be a guy working 8 to 5 surfing Mavericks every day. They get that one photo, that one wave, and all of a sudden you're making national news or international news.
It was like that for a while. I don't know. At this point, I don't know. You can ask Aloe.
That's the guy I'm thinking of.
Probably
right?
Barely. Yeah. But even that, how far is it going to, he's really put in a ton of time and very deserving. But
but
you're going to have to catch a heck of a wave because about 20 other guys caught a bunch of huge waves and nobody cares.
Right. But that was his day. That was his wave. And it's huge.
Yeah. And it's just a perfect, there's a bunch of stuff that goes into that, but like the right angle of the right moment. And that's the one. And every other one then is sort of shadowed by it, overshadowed. And
that's true.
It's weird. It was funny in that when Mavericks first came out, everybody was so excited about it, and pretty much anybody who caught a wave, it almost always was like shown.
Right.
Like now anybody who comes out to Mavericks, even if it's like cover worthy of an old surf magazine, it's not going to no one's going to see it.
Yeah.
Like nobody cares, like there's so much. And then take Nasri and Ireland and Jaws and all the other spots too, that are taking up some of the limelight. It's not quite as easy as lightning strikes like it used to.
In the old days too, and surfing cold water, San Francisco, surfing Mavericks is cold water. How has wetsuit technology helped push you guys?
Yeah, it's night and day. I mean,
yeah.
I remember when I first got to San Fran, the guys were talking about like they used to wear sweaters.
That's insane.
It wasn't that long ago that there was no wetsuits, and they would surf, like make a fire on the beach and like run out there and try to catch one and then run back to the fire.
Yeah.
People were pretty hardy in the old days. That's the other thing. You see them at the old boardwalk at Playland at Cliff House, and they were all swimming. Thinking nobody's swimming now.
No.
Yeah, those early wetsuits were bad, and they didn't really keep you warm. They were very uncomfortable. A lot of times we got like bad rashes from them, and but it let you get in the water, and at least it was a way to be out there. But yeah, that has changed a lot. And I'd say the last, 20 years, they're just lighter, more maneuverable. I haven't had a rash and I can't remember. And honestly, I'm not cold. A lot of people, you're down south and you're not used to it. But if you were up here and you acclimated a bit and you have a good wetsuit, it's as comfortable as being in Hawaii because
really, okay.
Well, think about it. I mean, in Hawaii, the water's not 98.6, and then this cloud comes over and the wind shifts, and you're losing core temp. Here, if you're wearing the right stuff, man, you could be out all day and never feel cold. So that's how I feel, and I'm really comfortable in my wetsuits, and I have Asuris. Asuris wetsuits are really good. But the other ones too, I think we're spoiled compared to, when we were little.
Okay. Is there days where it's just too cold outside, or, do you put booties and hood on? And
I wear booties. Yeah, I like booties. I always wear a hood. The ear thing is a big deal up here, and I've been able to manage to keep that from blocking out by keeping my hood on. Yeah, so if you're not used to booties and a hood, you're going to have to get used to it, or you will be cold up here some. The air temperature is the biggest difference.
Yeah.
The water, for the most part, stays about the same, and we do occasionally have chilly or warm, but like around mid 50s. But the air can be in the 40s, and if it's windy and fog or whatever, you can get cold from the air. And if it's sunny in the January, it could be beautiful, and you're like, oh my god, I can't believe it's it feels like warm and friendly.
That's awesome. Yeah. Where do you see yourself in the next 20 years? Still out of Mavericks catching waves?
Yeah, I said a long time ago, I'm like, when I can't do it, I want to be on the lawn chair with my binos watching them. I can see that still clearly. I saw that when I was 21 or 23. I don't know if that's how it works, but I picture myself catching a few as long as I can, and then still being involved in some part of this. Like, I'm really excited about weather forecasting and learning. Dungeons is a place in South Africa I spent a lot of time, and right now I'm watching storms for some guys down there and like surfing vicariously through them, because I'm not even planning on going. I'd love to surf there again sometime, but similar to Mavericks, where I know the spot so well, I can figure out what's likely to happen before it happens, and make a call that's helpful to them.
Yeah.
I did some of this with a project with Pete Mel. If you're 25 years old, you can't have learned this, because it takes decades to know what your dad knows. John Mel is, 25, just becoming a Maverick surfer. The last really big winter, he was a baby, He couldn't have experienced it the way his dad did. So we can share our knowledge with those guys, and they can do better because of it. And it's super fun to participate on that way, so I could give them my tip and like see it pay off, and then we both are high-fiving, and I feel like I helped,
Yeah.
But it's super cool doing that. So I can see, carrying on that way and making films and, following the mysteries of surfboards or swells or, new spots. It doesn't get old. I feel as excited as I ever did for it. And I'm a little achier, and I'm a little more worried about not getting cramped up before I catch a couple, but you know what? I feel really lucky to be able to still do it. And I can see people who are older than me still doing it. I'm 57, and I can see friends that are 70 and they still ride Mavericks.
Okay.
So I'll be planning to be one of them.
Yeah. What about Ocean Beach? Are you still surfing Ocean Beach?
After I moved away, and I feel like, she's going to hold it against me, but I lived there for so long. You like kind of look at your sandbars and that you get to know it. And now when I go back, I feel like it's foreign.
Oh, really? Okay.
I know. It's like when you drive away from it, it's like kind of, you have to be a glutton for punishment. When you live there, of course you're going to go out because it's the closest. I didn't have to take on my wetsuit. I could put it on in my kitchen and go straight in my shower.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I wasn't going to drive all around when I could see waves right in front of my house.
Right.
And now to drive up there to go get kicked in the head 50 times on the paddle out. It's a hard thing to do, even though I know I should, and it would be better for me to go do that. I end up surfing someplace with a channel and pretending I got a workout.
Oh, there you go.
No. But yeah, like it is a weird place where you would feel like, oh, I just had like 2 great sessions at Mavericks, and I come back to Ocean Beach and it's half the size, and I'm like drowning and like can't make it out. Like, oh my God, it's like she's just holding it against you. Like, oh yeah, Mr. Famous Big Wave Guy, here you go. Do some more duck dives. Like, you just can't even get near the part where it's like scary. It's just like little whitewater is just pushing you, and then you turn around and there's a kid building a sandcastle by your feet, and you're like, oh my God. Paddled for a half hour and I'm nowhere.
It's pretty wide open still, though, where you live, right?
It is, I think the ocean is a big place.
Yeah.
And honestly, like looking how boards are changing, and I don't know if you follow the foils and stuff. It's really hard to know where this is all going to go. But, like typical longboarding or whatever fun surfing that we all grew up doing, like there's spots for that. And, I don't think there's any miracle that's going to be discovered here. But the way to ride those waves and the way to use some of these swells is expanding. Like where there was SUPs and then kites and then stuff like that. So there's going to be ways to be able to play in areas that weren't previously thought to be that fun, because under the old equipment it wasn't that fun. And now all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is a perfect spot for that. So it seems like that's happening more. And I can say, like, I've done some other I don't do a ton of extra other sports, but I could see finding ways as you get older to keep doing some things that maybe, you wouldn't have done when you're 20 or 30, but now that looks like fun, so.
Yeah.
It's like stand up paddling through the coves. It's like, wouldn't be dying to do that in the old days, but now I'm like, oh, look, there's a nice fun longboard wave there.
Okay, cool.
Take my wife out, go cruising, get whatever, do something else, maybe do some scuba diving, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's a beautiful coast and there's tons of opportunities. And the big wave spots are few and far between, and the big days are few and far between. So you got to find other stuff.
The good thing is there's a lot of little coves and like highs the wind where you're at probably.
Yeah, and you know what? Honestly, I just don't care. Like, you're not going to find a world-class, amazing place that's empty,
Okay.
Anywhere near Santa Cruz. But you might find a really fun little thing that's only good for a little while, and there's no one around,
Awesome.
And that's kind of part of it, is like the little quest and the I wonder if I can ride that and not hit the rock, or wonder if I can, connect one from here to there. Like, those are the things that keep me going right now, and it's not, how's this going to measure versus Namibia or J-Bay?
Right.
It's just like, oh, we got some ways. But when Mavericks is on fire, that measures with everything.
Okay.
And so that kind of means I don't need to hunt all that much. But I would love to go visit some of the places I've been, or, go check some of the new spots before I'm too old to do it. But I can feel that kind of happening. And none of us wants to get old, but you have to sort of face the music.
You're right.
And know your limits. Yeah. Like, I could just, when my calves are cramping up, it's time to go slow. And, your body will tell you. Yeah, but hey, I would have never imagined I could surf the waves I surfed this year. I remember being like in my 20s and thinking like 30 was like dead.
Yeah.
Like, it was like thinking you're 57 and you're still surfing Mavericks like all the time. Like, what?
That's rad.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, it's so cool. If I had known that, I would have probably been even more stoked about it. When I was younger, Kelly Slater hadn't won a championship at 50. We all thought it was, sports end when you're 27.
And back in the day, they were quitting at 27.
No, I know.
Yeah.
And like, truly, there's a new longevity that we all learned in, is if you do take care of yourself, and like, surfing is a great sport for longevity.
Yeah.
You're getting exercise, you're getting movement, and you're not getting beat up by jumping up and down on the floor or getting hit by some giant.
Yeah, totally.
It's hard to last in football because, like,
those guys are,
you're going to die in practice.
Yeah. And then comes back and they're injured the rest of their life.
Oh my God.
It's gnarly.
That's one of the things I learned working on those things. Like, you just don't want to be tackled by that guy. I'd rather have a wave on my head. Holy cow. Yeah, this is the next level. So anyway, that's a great sport for that. And it can, you can still have fun as you get older. It just changes how you do it, but there's no end in sight. And I'm looking at flotational wheelchairs for my mom's in her 80s. I'm not joking.
Really?
Man.
Okay.
These guys have them for hospice. We do this stuff with Surfers for Autism and like Make-A-Wish and that. And they build, custom things for special needs people. And then as people get old, in and out of the water is this slippery slope,
Yeah.
Like, you right on that break zone where you have to go from the beach to the impact zone. And it could be like 1 inch of waves, but my mom will be afraid, right, trying to get in and out of the water.
Of course.
There's these ways to just transition that part. And then once you're in the water, they're great. They're weightless, they're floating.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much therapy to it, but that, you can't go in the water anymore because you can't get in and out of the water.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's a thing I'm pretty excited about for the future. And by the time I'm old, I want someone pushing me in the water. So I'm going to build a big one for me.
Awesome. Well, Grant Washburn, thank you so much for coming on the QuiverCast, man. It was super fun. Thank you for coming on.
Well, it's great being here, man. And in 20 years, we can revisit and see if I'm surfing my wheelchair.
100%. All right, everybody. This is Mike and Grant, and we are out of here.
I go right. Man, this wave is out of sight. Going surfing. Going surfing. Going surfing with friends. Ride this wave to the shore. Paddle out, I'm gonna catch 10 more. Going surfing. Going surfing. Going surfing with friends. I don't care if it's wrong or right. I'm gonna do it all day, I'm gonna do it all night. I'm going surfing. I'm going surfing. Going surfing with friends. It's a beautiful day. I'm going surfing. I'm going surfing. Going